Welcome to Beyond Time Signatures. Today with us, we have Francesco Filigoi. Welcome to the podcast, Francesco.
Hello there.
And we are joined with Manav today. And I'm very excited for this episode because in this episode, we are going to talk about all things technical and digital marketing and many more topics. But firstly, I would like to start by asking you, Francesco, like, what's your first memory with guitar and how did you fall in love with the instrument?
Oh my God. Okay, so very first memory has to be when I was like 12, probably 12, and my parents came home with a classical guitar and
Okay.
they just brought me this guitar that they bought for like, I don't know, $50 at the time. And I think at the time their idea was just to keep me busy during the summer. So they bought me this guitar, and for some months I didn't even look at the guitar. But after a little bit, I decided to, okay, let's give it a try. And I fell in love with it. And I think my parents regretted it because I was keeping them up like until very late night. I was playing very loud, this classical guitar. And they realized, okay, maybe there's something more than just a hobby. And from there, I just kept going. So that's my first memory.
Dude, that's really awesome to hear. And I'm probably guessing like, you spend most of your teenage years like just grinding technique and like, in a room playing guitar like most of us guys.
Yes, I would say, there's a lot of people that are like, is it too late to start practicing guitar right now when they're maybe like in their 30s or 40s? Some of my students are older. And I'm like, that's completely fine. But when your brain is most active and ready to assimilate informations is really when you're in your late childhood or early teens. So that's when you need to like really grind it. And that's what I did. I started at 12, 13, and then up until my 20s, I was practicing in my bedroom a lot. Actually, not that seriously until I was like 20, 21. At 2021, there were a couple choices in my life that I was not too happy about. For example, I was studying in university, I was studying architecture. And I liked the topic, but the university in my area was not really, I don't know, it wasn't a good environment. And
Okay.
shortly after, I joined a graphic design school. Casualty was that a lot of students in the graphic design school were musicians, and I started practicing more. I was more into music because of the environment that I was in. Even if it was not a music school, it was still a school that had a lot of musicians. So it reignited the spark in me to practice. And that's also when I started prioritizing music. I wanted to join a band. So I started looking around for local bands that were searching for a guitarist. My very first band was called Karnak. It was like a brutal death metal band in my area, and we toured like Europe. We toured Italy in support of some like death metal bands. It was like Nile, Suffocation. We played
Nice.
with Flesh God Apocalypse a couple times. So yeah, it was a long time ago. Let's say 2010, 2011. At the same time, I was starting my project Abiogenesis, and the drummer, the first drummer was actually Karnak's drummer. And
Okay.
at one point I had to make a choice, and I was like, do I want to continue with this band that I'm in, or do I want to just go with my own project? So I started going with my own project. And from there, took a long time, but we did release some music, which went pretty well, even if it's just a very, very small collection of music. After that, our drummer had to move very far away, and I tried to find another drummer unsuccessfully because either the good ones were not interested, or they were too busy, or they were asking a lot of money, or the ones that were actually interested, maybe they were not as good as the previous drummer. So I decided to stop Abiogenesis for a period of time and then prioritize the teaching aspect. So from 2016, 2017, I started prioritizing my main income up to nowadays, which is teaching. And I started doing a lot of guitar lessons, posting a lot of videos online about certain guitar topics. And that's when I guess it started to really become a business for me as a person rather than just being a band member. But yeah, that's it for now.
Yeah, I remember watching one of your videos about Tortex.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, that really changed. Like, I honestly, I actually like saw it quite recently, and it really changed things. I was like, I always had Tortex, but I used to think that okay, maybe if it's not that hard, it's not good. But then I watched your video, and like it changed my mind a little bit more.
There's a lot of people, Okay, so let's talk about picks for a second. So there's a lot of people who are very used to whatever pick they're using. And most of the time, it's a Jazz 3 because it's a very
Yes.
effortless pick that a lot of people use. And some years ago, I posted this video on my YouTube channel, which has been inactive for quite some time. But I did post this video in which I was talking about the fact that Jazz 3 picks really don't sound that good.
Hmm.
And I got a lot of hate for that because, again, people are really used to play and they have some sort of like a sentimental attachment to whatever pick they're using or whatever type of gear they're using. So they're romanticizing it. And they were like, no, you're wrong. If this player is using it, why is it like bad? Why are you saying it's bad? So I would say this is almost objective that if you compare a Jazz 3 pick compared to a bigger size pick, and I'm just referring to metal rhythm, the bigger pick will definitely have more surface hitting the strings. There will be more of a big sound that is more upfront on all frequencies. And the problem with the Jazz 3 is that it's so tiny that there's just a little bit of the tip sticking out of your fingers. So there's not
Right.
actually much contact in between the pick and the strings. You want to really hit the strings very aggressively if you want the sound to be metal or more aggressive. So that's why, sound wise, I do prefer the sound of bigger picks. Doesn't mean necessarily thicker picks. I'm not talking about the thickness, I'm talking about the size of the
Size.
pick. Yes. So the size matters because, again, just a little tip of the pick is not going to be enough to have that attack and that upfront chugging sound that you want out of the guitar. A lot of it is also in the technique itself, and a lot of guys play with different techniques. But I'm pretty confident in saying that a bigger pick will always translate into a bigger sound, at least for metal rhythm. So I can definitely understand people that like the feeling of a Jazz 3 because it feels more effortless. But once they actually get used to a bigger pick, the Jazz 3 probably feels like a toy. But they really need to give bigger picks a try and get used to them because at first it might feel like, oh my god, the pick is like feeling like I'm getting stuck in between the strings. That's the feeling that some people that are so used to Jazz 3s, they don't like at first the sound of, like the feeling of bigger picks because they
Yeah.
get stuck in the strings. But if they have a good technique, that's not going to happen. So I'm just going to give you an example right now. Let's see if I have a pick right now around me. Yes, I have this here. So this is how a lot of people hold their pick, regardless if it's a Jazz 3 or a bigger pick. Like in this case, I'm using like a T3. And if you have your pick flat against the strings, there's going to be a lot of surface that hits the string. So it's actually going to be harder for the pick to surpass the string. There's going to be a lot of resistance applied from the string. But if the pick is at an angle, actually it's just going to glide much more easily and more effortlessly across the string back and forth. So instead of picking like this, you should actually have an angle that is created by closing the index a little bit and bending the thumb a little bit. This
Some.
will actually
Yeah.
give the type of attack that you want when you're playing alternate picking or chugging. This will definitely help the speed because there will be less resistance from the strings and also the sound itself. Because if the pick is too flat against the strings, you're going to hear a lot of the fundamental note, but not enough of the attack. If the pick is too much at an angle, you're going to hear a very like zingy sound that is like very scratchy sound. You
Yeah.
just gotta find the right amount in between the note, which is super flat, and the attack. So usually it's just a little bit of an angle, and of course it's gonna translate into a better recorded tone.
I mean, your playing style, be it leads or be it rhythm, it's quite, it has that attack, like it has that fierceness. So yeah, I mean, definitely the picking angle helps. I mean, I think personally, I think even the way, like some people hold, like I personally like to assist my index with my middle finger so that it
Hmm.
stays in place and it's more consistent while down picking and stuff. I think even that changes a lot of parameters, right?
It does. If you take a look at old Misha videos, he's playing with three fingers, like this, I think, holding the pick with three fingers, and that has his own sound. But if you actually watch from Periphery 3 and after, he actually did change his technique into the more like standard one, I would say. And it does permit the player to play more effortlessly and play faster, more technical stuff. So I'm not saying that other type of techniques don't sound good. They do sound good. You will have many players like, I don't know, Ola Englund or Tosin Abasi, they actually have the reverse, what I call the
Yeah.
banana thumb. And it sounds very aggressive when you hit the strings like that. So it depends, like sound wise, each technique sound different and they all can be good in their own way. But as far as being in control, being faster, being able to play what you have in your head without any constrictions, this, which I call the Paul Gilbert posture, is in my opinion the standard. And you're right that I really love the attack when I play. Like it's one thing that I really care about my playing. And it's something that I fell in love by listening to Paul Gilbert. When you listen
Yep.
to his stuff, he is super fast. He's not like the fastest, but he's super fast. But what really jumps out is the type of attack that he has while he plays the notes. And that's something that I really worked a lot to replicate myself. And part of it, again, is the way you angle the pick to have the right attack when it attacks the strings. But another thing is palm muting. I do mute the strings that I'm playing when actually playing solos because you will actually get a more defined and separate
Yes.
tones in
Yes.
between each note, especially the lower ones. So that's something that I really pay a lot of attention to. And I do want to attack the strings by palm muting them. Regardless if it's alternate picking or sweep picking, I'm going to palm mute them a little. So there's going to be a little bit more of separation in between them, which definitely helps with the overall attack.
You spoke about like bigger picks, not thicker picks.
Yes.
But most of my bandmates, when band used to exist, used to use these extremely thick Jacato picks. Have you had a chance to use them?
I have a collection of many, many picks.
Right.
And I have tried many, and I still go back to my personal favorite, which is the Tortex 3. But yeah, I have tried those Jaquetto picks. And what I would suggest someone that doesn't really know if they like thicker picks or thinner picks is to probably just buy a lot of the same pick, different gauges, buy like a bunch of them, record the same part with all of them, and you will notice that the thicker you go, the more low end you will have. But at the same time, the thicker you go, the less high end you will have. So you will have a much more attack with a thinner pick and much more low end with a thicker pick. You need to just get what gives you the sound that you're looking for. In my case, I want balance in between the attack in the higher register and of course the oomph out of the low notes. So I settled for my personal favorite, which is the green one, the 0.88 for recording. But feeling wise, I like the yellow one a bit more, which is the 0.73. So I go back and forth in between them all the time. So if I were to do gigs or concerts or lessons, I'm going to use the 0.73. If I have to do recording, I will go for 0.88. And the same can be said about strings. The thicker you go regarding guitar strings, the more low end you're going to get, but the less attack you're going to get. If someone complains about their tone lacking clarity, just go with thinner strings. It's going to make up a lot of clarity that is missing right now in your tone. Vice versa, if someone has a tone that is just too harsh or lacks low end, just go with maybe a little bit thicker gauge of strings, and it's going to rebalance this. And I'm not even talking about gear or whatever they're using specifically. I'm really just talking about strings and pick. You got to think about it this way, that when you record something, everything that is after it's being recorded, which is in your DAW, can be reamped or retweaked a million times. If you don't like a plugin, change the plugin. If you don't like the amplifier that has been used, change the amplifier. If you don't like the IR or the cab that has been used, you can change it. But you cannot change what is before the audio interface. So you need to take as much care as possible of the stuff that is before the audio gets converted into a digital waveform, which means the instrument needs to be set up as good as possible. The pick needs to be the one that gives you the best sound. The strings need to be fresh, no buzzing or minimal buzzing. good action, good intonation in between each fret. So everything that is before needs to be on point because you cannot get back to it unless you record again. Once you have the right take, then it's being recorded and then you can fiddle around with the gear. But a lot of players will be like, I don't like this sound. How can I make it better? And they instantly think it's the gear that they're using, not what is before, which matters so much more. But yeah, that's what I think.
Fair, fair, fair.
That's so insightful.
How much of let's say a person's using thicker strings, but he wants, that clarity that you were talking about that you can achieve from getting thinner strings on board. How much of that high end is approximately retrievable in post production?
There's many tricks that you can do to get the high end back.
Right.
One that just comes off my mind is if you have a DI that is being recorded in your DAW, just EQ the DI so that it sounds brighter. That's
what I thought. That's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah. You can always like rebalance things afterwards, but I'm more of a purist in this case.
Right.
And I would say that what comes in, I would prefer to work with that without actually touching it too much. So what I'm going to do is try to get the most out of a specific type of gear that maybe complements the thicker strings or the sound that I'm getting from the guitar. And it always depends on the guitar. If I have a guitar that sounds very bright, naturally, maybe I'm going to go for maybe a darker cab or a darker amplifier. If I have a guitar that is so muddy, then naturally I will gravitate towards an amplifier or a cab that are a little bit brighter to compensate this. And this is before maybe going into stuff that is like EQing the DI or stuff like that. There are definitely instances where I'm going to EQ the DI or even tune the DI, not regarding my playing because I'm super perfectionist regarding my recorded takes, but let's say that I'm reamping or taking care of guitar sounds for other bands. In this case, maybe some takes might not be as tight or might not be as in tune, or maybe they have some harsh resonances. In this case, and that's like a last resort for me, I will probably go into applying some EQ, or maybe I will apply Melodyne on the DI to make sure that certain notes are in tune instead of being very obviously out of tune. Or I even apply Soothe sometimes, which removes some harshness out of guitar DIs. This stuff helps only if everything that you have thought of before is in place. This is not gonna, you cannot polish a turd. You need to have something solid to work with. Otherwise, there's so much that you would have to do to make it even just acceptable. Okay. So, yeah.
And how many takes gives you that? I mean, how many takes is a good number of takes before, you're like, enough?
Couple of thousand.
I don't know. It depends how much of a perfectionist you are. It can, and it depends on the genre as well. Let's say that you're a band that has more of an organic sound. Let's say, I don't know, maybe you're playing some old school type of stuff. And in that case, maybe a song could be even just like 10 takes, 20 takes is not that much. Or you could definitely have it more professional and be like, okay, I'm going to do riff by riff. That is the next step. The next step after that is my step, which is already pretty insane, which is I don't do riff by riff. I do part by part, which means that if I have a part, okay, I need to explain this a little bit better because otherwise it really sounds insane. So let's say that I have a riff that goes at first on the 4th fret, and then goes into the 1st fret, and then it goes into open string. So maybe it goes like da, 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 dun, 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 dun. And then I'm going to chug on the low string. I'm going to record this riff in three separate parts. Not because I'm not able to do it, because obviously it's a simple riff. But in order to have each chord sound at their best, just tuning the guitar to the open string is not going to be enough. I don't tune to the open string. I tune to the fret that I'm holding. So if I have a power chord on the 4th fret, I'm going to tune to the 4th fret, the low E, to the 4th fret, the A, to the 4th fret, the other.
That's insane.
That's insane. Many people don't know about this. If you care about it, it's going to make all the difference because every chord will be so evenly in tune. And then it'd be like, there's Evertune for that. Not exactly. We'll talk about that in a second, but I'm going to record the fourth fret so that the chord is in tune. Then I have the first fret, and I'm going to retune so that the first fret is in tune. And you might ask, is it going to be really that much of a difference? Because if you tune to the open string, technically, if you have good intonation in the instrument, all the other frets should be in tune. Not exactly, no. You will actually notice that every time you fret the first fret, the note will actually be sharp, even if the open string is in tune. You have to account for the fact that each fret is going to be slightly off tune, even if the open string is in tune. So that's why fourth fret, you have to tune for the fourth fret. First fret, you retune slightly, just slightly, but it's going to make a difference. And then, of course, I'm going to tune for the open string so that the open string is in tune. And it takes a lot of work, but it makes all the difference. And then you'd be like, Evertune is supposed to make everything stay in tune. Yes, on the open fret. On the other frets, there's still going to be the difference of having slight differences in between where you are on the fretboard. Even if you have perfect intonation, it's never going to be like exactly right. With the Evertune, it does make things more simple, because one advantage of the Evertune is that if you press a string, it's not gonna slightly change the tuning of the string. I want you guys to understand what I'm talking about is really nerdy, but I want you guys to understand this. So let's say that I'm picking an open string. Well, if I'm picking an open string, I'm not fretting anything. So if it's in tune, it's in tune. Once I press with my finger a certain fret on the fretboard, my finger could actually bend the strings ever so slightly. So the string that was before completely in tune by being open, now it's actually slightly out of tune because the pressure of my finger put it slightly off tune. The Evertune actually makes up for it. So it's easier to actually get like a more consistent intonation across the board with an Evertune, but it still doesn't solve the problem completely. So that's why, again, if you want really that consistency, you tune to the part that you're playing. If I'm playing a complex chord on the 8th fret or 5th fret, I'm going to tune to the chord. I'm not going to tune to the open string. It does make a huge difference. Another thing that does matter is that, are you able to replicate that live? Of course, I'm able to play that. Is it going to be as insanely in tune? No. But at least I'm capable of playing that live. What bothers me is maybe people that play stuff recorded that they're not able to replicate live. And that's when you see people that are maybe like, it's pretty obvious to hear that some stuff has been maybe slowed down and then recorded at a slower speed and then sped up. Or maybe there's stuff that is insane to play and you don't hear any type of string noise in the middle, in between takes. You hear like a guy that is doing like insane scales and you don't really hear even like the minimum amount of string noise. That like screams fake to me. But stuff like recording separately, that's the norm. Recording with intonating to the part, that's the norm in professional recordings. And there's also like a next step after that, which I'm not personally a fan of, which is recording note by note. And I think it just sounds like
No.
it starts to sound like not a human. And
Yeah. I mean, it will, like, you're eventually sampling a guitar library,
Basically,
right?
yeah,
If you're
yeah.
doing note by note.
yeah, I mean, if that's the sound you want, go for it. Like, if you want that ultra cyber Rings of Saturn type of stuff, and that's the aesthetics you want, go for it. Like, I want you guys to understand that all the talk about real, fake, triggers, not triggers, it's all BS in the grand scheme of things, because
Yeah.
electronic music is just made by like, sounds that you have in your computer. So as long as the listener is hearing something that he likes, who am I to judge? Who am I to
Exactly.
judge? Oh, it's not real enough. Oh, you quantize this. Who cares if the vast majority of people are just enjoying what they hear?
Fair.
We need to
fair enough.
understand that we are a very, very tiny amount of the overall listening audience. And I experienced this myself because when I released some music with my previous projects or bands, I was so into the sound itself, the takes being how I wanted them. 99% of the comments were either about the singer or the video, and they didn't care at all about the guitars or stuff like that, or the tone. People, the majority of people, especially non-musicians, they just listen to a wall of sound. They're not gonna nitpick, which doesn't mean that we're necessarily wrong. But if it's something that the overall product portrays like the idea in a decent way, that should be enough for the majority of people.
I have a question for you, Francesco. Since your personal brand has evolved from being from teaching and guitar playing to now that is marketing, management, and development, like engineering side of things. So, like, what intrigued or what started that transition, and how do you feel about it now?
All right. So this started many years ago, in which I was starting to just record myself like the majority of musicians. At one point, they just want to do things themselves because it's more immediate rather than going to other studios. And of course, I bought my first audio interface, started recording myself. I was very sloppy. My takes didn't really sound that good. So once I sent some stuff to an engineer or mixing guy that needed to mix my music, he was like, nah, your stuff doesn't really sound that good. Check this. He sent me some takes from another band, and he was like, this is how it's supposed to be. I was like, yeah, there's a night and day difference compared to what I sent and what these guys sent. And I started experimenting and understanding what really went into the recording and the other side of things, not the musician side of things, but the mixing and the engineering side of things. So that's what got me interested into improving myself on that type of stuff. And alongside getting better at recording myself, I was also getting more proficient at tweaking guitar tones to make my guitar tone better, of course. And one of the first things that I realized by tweaking guitar tones was that the cab makes a huge difference. The cab is the most important factor into the guitar tone cutting or not cutting through the mix. So cab was something that was really important, very apparent to me as a very important piece of the chain. And I was always scrolling in between like many cab IRs in my Axe FX or whatever gear I had at the time. We were talking about like 10 years ago, maybe. And I realized that the majority of IRs were not really that good. So I started experimenting by capturing IRs myself. And that's when I started purchasing a lot of microphones and a lot of cabs so that I could make the sound that I had in my head transferred into the cabs. And I started compulsively buying a lot of cabs and microphones to the point that we are here right now, in which that's a lot of the time that I'm spending is capturing cabs for companies, for various companies. As of now, I released a plugin with GGD called Contenders Round 1. Of course, there's going to be Contenders Round 2, which is other cabs. And meanwhile, I have also done bass cabs for submission audio products. So there are bass libraries. They come with some tones. They're built in. So some mixed ready tones. Those mixed ready tones have my IRs baked in. But yeah, I really enjoy this because it is not just for me. It is to help other people getting better tones and stuff that ultimately inspires them to create music that they like. So that fulfills me a lot, and that makes me happy. That's it.
Wonderful, man. I'm really like stoked on that because like I in my opinion like the IRs in the GGD cab sound like has probably the highest quality cabs that I've heard, and that makes me question that is there an objective metric to judge a quality of an IR, or like another question can be like how do you differentiate between a good IR and a bad IR, or is it a subjective feeling?
Part of it can be subjective, but there is definitely a way to tell if an IR has been captured properly or not really that well. The first thing to notice is that if you look EQ wise to a cab IR and you notice some very prominent peaks in the low end around 100 hertz, that means that that cab has been captured with a power amp or something that colors the sound a lot. And it doesn't really translate into a very natural sound. It just emphasizes a lot of low end in a way that will actually mask other frequencies. In the same way, tube amps can apply a lot of coloration in the high register. So there might be a lot of spiky resonances in the high frequencies, and that is definitely not something that you want out of an IR, because it's going to be very harsh and very prominent, very apparent to your ears. So that's something that I really don't like with IRs in general. And I try to have my IRs as balanced as possible from the start. So there is definitely a way to make IRs more balanced capture wise, but also a lot of it depends on the speaker itself. I could have the best capturing method, but if the speaker that I'm capturing is just horrible, it's not going to give me the sound that I want. The speaker and the capturing method and where I position the microphone, of course, needs to be, again, very balanced so that what comes out ultimately is going to look EQ wise like something really, really balanced. And usually if you get like EQ wise, this type of spectrum, you're going to get a cab IR that sounds very convincing in the mix, regardless of its character. But again, if you have a cab that EQ wise, you notice that it's pretty scooped, or there's very apparent spikes here and there, most likely is going to have those spikes very audible as well. And it's not going to translate that well. And it's going to be either pretty scooped or pretty harsh or pretty boomy to listeners. So yes, part of it is just taste. But at the other part, I do think that there is a kind of objective way to tell, hey, this is not good and this is definitely better.
On the other end, I mean, instead of talking about single signals, let's talk about full mixes. My band has been heavily influenced by a lot of Within Destruction's work, everything from Void to Lotus. A very distinctive sound, incredible energy. What speakers do we listen to that kind of music on?
So let's say that you want to listen to an overall mix. And of course, an overall mix goes from super lows, maybe you have sub drops, you have the kick drum, you have the bass. And of course, you have mids, which are snare, guitars, vocals. You go into the highs, and of course, there are cymbals, there are maybe some synthesizers, some effects. So there's a lot of frequencies to take into consideration. And while I do like my AirPods for an overall listening experience, or maybe for IRs, maybe they're not the most accurate when I need to listen to an overall mix. But on the other hand, you need to really realize, am I hearing stuff so that it sounds good for me?
Or everybody
or
else?
am I judging stuff so that the normal listener is gonna like it? And you gotta really understand that not just in pop music, but in metal as well, which is a genre in which there's many more musicians and they care more. Still, the vast majority of people, they are listening through their phone speakers or AirPods. Ultimately, what matters is that it sounds good on what most people are gonna enjoy it. But of course, you need a lot of detail to be able to get the most of the sound so that it will translate better into a lower quality speaker or headphones. So I do, of course, reference with what I have available. And the better the reference, the more accurate can be your judging in terms of, okay, I want the vocals louder, I want the guitars a little bit less harsh, and all of this. So when I listen to a mix or I need to do revisions, I will definitely listen through my monitors, I will listen through my headphones, I will also use my AirPods and my phone speakers, because that's basically gives you the whole range of things.
Got it.
One thing that I don't particularly like, and I see a lot of people doing, is listening in my car. I think cars, you know, the so-called car test. Every car sounds drastically different from one another, and you get a lot of lows either from the car running, because you need to understand that people don't listen in a car while just like the car being stopped. They listen in a car meanwhile the car is running. And the low end of the engine of the car is going to definitely affect how you perceive the music itself. So I wouldn't really say that the car test is a valid one. But apart from it, everything from headphones to speakers to phone speakers to AirPods, I use all of it. And some things could make some problems more apparent than others. I would say do the majority of stuff to one source that you really trust. For example, for me, I really, really trust the Slate VSX headphones. I just purchased more expensive headphones, but I need to get used to them. to trust them more. And after that, try to do small refinements if you notice something else on other sources.
I think the technical aspects, like you're very knowledgeable, and
Yeah,
I'm
man.
like, yeah, the companies that get to work with you, like, they are doing a favor to their brand value by doing that. Like, it's, I mean, I always knew that you, but it's seeing it firsthand, it's like just awesome. However, I would like to ask you about that. You are also the artist rep or relations guy for Submission Audio. So, firstly, how did that happen? And secondly, like, I have personally noticed that ever since, like, I would say about a year ago, like probably when you joined them, what one thing that you started doing, I think for me personally, that made all the difference. It was, instead of just resharing everyone's posts, what you would do is you would add that person's tag, you'd put an X, and you would add what library they were using. And
Yes.
I think it's so subtle, but it makes all the difference.
There's little things here and there. So me and the director of Submission Audio, which is Ermin Hamidovic, we
Armin.
have been friends for the longest time. We've been friends for like, I don't know, 15 years. And we did collaborate together on other stuff before. For example, my project, Abiogenesis, he mixed it. So our collaboration goes back a long time. And there was a point in 2023 where he was not too satisfied with the people that were running social media for Submission Audio. And we were just like talking in between each other. And he told me, yeah, maybe we would need better content. Because at the time, I was putting out some videos that were doing very well in terms of engagement. And he liked the aesthetic of my videos. So he was like, would you like to do some content? I was like, yeah, I would like, but at the same time, I would really like to have more control. So there was one guy that was contacting artists to make videos or content for Submission Audio. And there was another guy that was handling the social side of things for Submission Audio. I basically took care of both aspects. And you're right regarding the tag and the product being mentioned. It was something that kind of needed to be done because a lot of videos out there, they're very good looking aesthetically and they sound amazing, but usually you don't really see what plugin or what tools they've been used by the guy. So when I share something, I need to provide a reason why I shared it. And most people, most content creator will tag what they used in the caption. So of course I look at the caption, and of course I will put in the story reshare what that person used. And also tagging the person that used it gives it a bit more like of an incentive to be like, hey, you're
Yes.
being recognized. We see you. We appreciate. We are resharing you. Keep doing this. You're doing great. And eventually we do contact those people to promote our new releases. So, hey, it just goes both ways. You cannot, as an artist, expect a brand to just give you free stuff. But also as a brand, you cannot just expect people to just credit you or give you content without doing anything. You need to reshare them. You need to make them feel loved or appreciated. And that's how it goes both ways. And this is regarding any type of relationship out there, not just for Submission Audio, but any brands that I endorse. It's not just that I endorse the brand also endorses me. It's a two-way thing. So this goes for guitars, this goes for amplifiers, picks, strings, digital, plugins, anything. It's always a two-way thing. It never works if just one person or one entity is given and the other one doesn't get anything in return.
You mentioned everything about a company that has product to sell. Now, it makes sense when a company has product to sell, the PR goes in both ends. But what truly has been bothering me for the last few years is that bands and artists don't think of their music the same way. They don't look at PR and personal relationship with their audience and giving back and taking the exact same way. I have
Yeah.
this rule: for every 10 things you give, you can ask for one thing from the audience as an artist. But I don't see bands doing it at all.
It depends. I would say the bands that are really succeeding, they're the ones that make the fans feel seen. Let's say that you have a band and you want to, it doesn't matter if you have a small following or a medium following or a big following. I will still make sure that all the people that tag you, regardless if they are wearing your merch or maybe they saw you live and they captured you live. You acknowledge them, you like their stuff, you start a conversation with them, you reshare, you repost their stuff. That makes them feel seen. And that makes it, on your end, very appreciative of what they're doing. If I'm tagging a band or whoever, and my message is not even being seen, I mean, like, they're not doing things right. Because that means that my message went nowhere. Even worse, they saw the message, but they didn't reply. They didn't even put a heart. It might be like a very small thing, but it is some sort of small validation that is like, okay, what I did to show you that I appreciate you is being seen. We are all people, regardless if we are on one side of the stage or on the other side of the stage. So when somebody likes my stuff, they share my stuff as an artist or whatever it is, I always appreciate and start a conversation with them because we are all people. And I like to have discussions or just appreciate what they're doing on a human level. And that's what ultimately helped me, I guess, building the network, not just being like, hey, thank you, that's it. Every little thing counts, every comment, every like, every reshare, every repost. And it does matter. I'm not just saying this as someone that represents the company. It does matter on a human level. It matters so much when somebody's taking time of their day to, I wouldn't say promote you, but acknowledge you. It means so much. Our lives are short. We only have one life. So in this life, if someone appreciates you, you have to give them back and appreciating them as well. That's the minimum.
Since we're talking marketing, for Within Destruction, the band's visuals are some of my favorite visuals any artist, I mean, any metal band out there has. For a lot of my projects, I'm solely responsible for the visuals and how they represent the brand. Were you also responsible for that for Within Destruction during your time over there?
Not exactly.
Okay.
Luca, the drummer, is basically the head of the band, is the manager. And he has a very specific vision of how things should be portrayed visually.
Right.
Luckily, I was agreeing with everything that he was putting out because he has a very specific vision that, one, it pops up very easily to the eyes, and second, it sells very well. So I was always okay to whatever he was doing regarding maybe blending anime graphics with metal or stuff like that. I was always, this is sick. Let's do it. Like all of us, we have a saying in a band, but ultimately it should always go through one person who is ultimately I wouldn't say the boss, but the one that takes the decisions ultimately before it gets approved. And this is basically for any band. If someone has a band in which everyone has the same decisional capabilities, there's going to be a lot of egos that are going to be conflictual in between each other. And it needs to be, let's do it as a democracy, but eventually needs to go to one person to be like, okay, now that everyone voted,
the brand.
let's do it this way. And since me leaving the band, they continued, of course, to have this anime-related visuals that make them more unique in their own niche. So I really like that.
They were brilliant, man. Every single art piece I saw come out from that band visually complemented the music more than anything else.
Yeah.
And even if you didn't listen to the music, you could appreciate the art for what it was.
Yeah.
So that was pure fantastic.
What do companies look out for in a good product demo? Like if you were to let's just say you know of a very sick player, but they have zero vision for content creation. If you were to tell something to them about making good product demo, what would you tell them?
This is an amazing question. All right. So first off, attention span is really low nowadays. Like something needs to catch your eyes immediately. So if I receive a video from a content creator, no matter how good they are at playing the instrument, that takes a while to be delivered, maybe the intro is a bit too long, or maybe there's a fade in from black into their playing, it takes way too long already. Just start right away showcasing the stuff, the music, the product immediately. Apart from that, of course, it needs to look nice because the visual part is just as important as the audible side of things. I would actually argue it's even more because you could be the best player in the world, but if your video is blurry, taken with horrible light, and it's very bad quality is not going to pop up the same as a very well presented video. Even regarding like famous bands nowadays, all of them have a very solid aesthetic element in them. Let's think about Sleep Token. Let's think about Polyphia. Let's think about Ghost. Many bands, the visual aspect is a key element into relating them to what they are. You remove the aesthetic aspect. Yes, there's still the music, but it wouldn't be as catchy. Mm-hmm. And the key word when presenting something on social media is it needs to be catchy. It needs to catch your attention. So you need to get the point across immediately. No intros, no fade ins, and no fade outs either, because a reel is meant to be looped. It's not just something that it finishes with a fade out and then people scroll down. Make sure that the end of the video and the beginning of the video, they're seamless in between each other. Yes. I wouldn't say perfectly in sync, but they should be feeling like, okay, I can rewatch this a million times and it's still going to be just as engaging. Okay. So that is important. And of course, focus on what you want to show. Do you want to show the instrument? Then the instrument should be the focal point. Do you also want to play with your overall aesthetic? Then, of course, you should maybe make people aware of more of your face and the background and stuff like that. And it creates more of an environment, which is what I like. If I want my guitar playing to be displayed, it's going to be the focus mainly on the instrument. Right. If I want people to relate to me as a person, then I might include my face as well. I want you guys to think about it this way. There's many exceptional guitar players on Instagram, and they maybe even have like a high amount of followers, but you never see their faces. And they're like, oh, I understand his username. I see him. I recognize that's him because of the angle that he has with the instrument and the way he displays guitars. But how does he actually look like? So you actually are not related too much with a certain person just because you lack the visual element of their faces. And that's something that I think more people should apply when they're playing. And I do understand that a lot of people might just be like self-conscious about their appearance, so maybe they just want the instrument to talk for them. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I do think that showing your face alongside your playing, it makes people more connected with you. If I was just talking, but you don't see my face, I wouldn't really be able to connect with what you're saying because right. the face has its own way of talking. Rather, otherwise, it's the same as reading some text.
What you're describing is literally ways somebody can build a personal brand if you're a guitarist on Instagram. What other avenues of marketing music have worked for you in the past, whether that's through a band or through your own music or through Submission Audio, GGD, and everything else?
So first, it can be Spotify income. For example, the stuff that I released as Abiogenesis, even if it's just one song, up to nowadays is more than $5,000, just one song.
Damn.
Every year, I'm still getting a decent sum of money from Within Destruction for my contribution to the album Yokai, because the numbers are good. We have like 20 something million streams on that album. And every year I'm getting revenue from that album. So it is true that Spotify doesn't pay as much as others. But at the same time, Spotify is what most people use. And that's regarding the streaming or digital sales part of it. When I was in Within Destruction, a lot was merch. Bands, if they have a good merch, they earn a lot of money with merch. And that's actually the majority of income when you're on tour. And that's why some bands that maybe don't have other incomes, because maybe they are not marketing themselves as individuals or they don't have the teaching side of things, they just have the band, they're relying on the band as their main income. Their main income is from merch. The third stuff is teaching. And for me, teaching has always been good. I consider myself a very solid teacher. So over time, I've been doing this for years and years, has been like a steady source of income. It is tasking because I assure you guys that talking in front of a camera for a person that is paying for your time, their hard-earned money for you to make them better is a high responsibility. And it is something that if you do well and enough people know that you're providing this service, it can give you like a fair amount of money each month. and that it is you as a person, as an individual, not as a band member. So that's all money that goes ultimately just to you, not something that you need to share with other people. Because merch or digital sales is just your part of something. Apart from it, if you're very good, you can have like a music related outlet, which could be, I'm selling gear, I'm creating gear. Let's say that I want to create a pedal, and I will sell the pedal. I will create amplifiers. I will create something that makes the sound of a certain thing better. In that case, you provide goods, could be digital, could be physical, to people. So in my case, my product, my IR plugin that is being sold by GZD, I earn a percentage from that sale. So throughout the year, I would say in between digital sales from bands or projects, plus digital sales of products that I released, plus, of course, being part of a company that sells those products, those, and of course, teaching, those are the various types of incomes that I earn as a musician or music related person.
You've gotten this far in the music space with like years of effort, and like even the smallest step you've taken has eventually compounded to making you, I mean, bringing you where you are. Being a multifaceted musician, producer, marketer, and being someone that has that many streams of income isn't common. However, the flip side to this is artists that continue their day job, pursue their career, in the corporate space, and then do music on the side. If you would have gone down the architecture route, if you would have gone down the route that, your degree and everything else set for you, do you think you would have gotten this far in music?
No, I appreciate people that have a 9 to 5 job and then the rest of the day or whatever free time they have, they dedicated to music and you can make it work. For me personally, I'm either all or nothing. Like if I'm putting effort into something, I really want to be as good as possible into that because I'm putting money, I'm putting effort, I'm putting energy into it. So that means that I really want to be all in into that, which is like, could be beneficial if you're good at something, but it could also be very detrimental if it consumes you. And I'm not going to say that it's so shiny in my life. Like a lot of stuff that I do is extremely stressful. The level of perfectionism that it takes to do certain things regarding companies or regarding products or regarding people that I need to create guitar tones for or mixing, whatever, it takes a lot of effort and it takes a toll on my mental and physical health, a lot, because I'm spending a lot of time at home. So I'm not as able to enjoy things as much as others. Especially, I want to make people aware that if they have a 9 to 5 job, it's most likely less stressful than what I'm doing. Because when you're just by yourself as a freelance, there's no 9 to 5. There is only 24/7.
24/7.
Yes, you need to be available all the time. If you're not available, they will ask somebody else who's going to be available. And you need to show that you're consistent. You need to show that you're available. Also, I work with people all around the world. I have people from Australia. I have people from the US that I need to relate to all the time. So I need to be available in their time zones as well. And this, of course, takes a toll on times where I could sleep or not sleep. It's pretty heavy, but would I change it for something else? No. But at the same time, it does affect your relationships with your closed ones. It affects your mental and physical health. I feel it. But again, is what I'm good at, and going all in also means a lot of sacrifice in this aspect as well. So it's a fine balance that you need to search for all the time.
How do you balance it? Because I'm not able to.
It's extremely hard. I would say I'm actually in a happy place right now. I live happily in a good relationship. I have good relationship professionally with all the companies that I work with. I have a good house. I have good gear. I cannot complain. But on the other hand, there is one thing that is missing, and that is my physical health. I have lost a lot of weight since doing things more for companies because I work much more. I need to go back to the gym. I need to eat better. I need to eat more. So the physical side of things has definitely gone down. And that's one of my New Year's resolutions, to definitely go back into prioritizing my physical health a little bit more. There are people that I haven't seen in a long time that I miss. Could be friends, could be family. And it's tough. You know that you're doing all of this for a greater good, but there's also times where you need to really turn off the plug and just reconnect to people that you really care about. Because otherwise, you're just being super isolated, and it's very easy to overdo this and go completely crazy. And especially in music, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people are encountering the same struggles. And if I encounter them, and I'm a professional that I would say has succeeded in this, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people have it much, much worse. Because maybe they're still struggling, or maybe it's not going as well as they want, or maybe their music that they have worked so much into is not having the success that they expected. So it really takes a toll. And of course, it couples with all the sacrifices that you made with relationships and all of that to make a thing work. So you need to first be good here in order for everything else to be a safe environment for you, I guess.
So I work in influencer marketing on a day-to-day basis. I actually take care of regional sales for a lot of brands in the Middle East of where I'm based out of Dubai. What happens, now this is a question that I've struggled with influencer marketing across brands over here. What happens when you give a product to, let's say, a macro influencer or macro content creator, someone with 200, 300K followers, and it doesn't result in any sales? What happens in that scenario on your end? Because in our end, we get screwed.
This is an excellent question. So this is also the reason why you will see many brands, especially in our niche, but even in general, as of late, they prioritize smaller content creators.
Micro. Yeah, fair.
Yes,
exactly.
the micro ones.
Yeah.
Because let's take someone like Prey. He might not be having the biggest amount of followers, but he has a niche of followers that are into the same stuff that he likes, and those people are going to relate very easily to stuff that he posts, because most likely I'm going to assume that most followers that follow Prey are guitar nerds like me, like him. So it's just that type of crowd that we're interested in. On the other hand, let's say that you're asking a band dude to promote your product. If he's part of a band, that means that a lot of his followers couldn't be into him just because he plays for that band. So they might not be as interested as someone that maybe has a smaller following, but a more accurate following to what is the brand's interest. So yes, you will see as of late more and more companies that don't really care for number of followers. They only care about the engagement and the niche that somebody is in. And also there's the whole thing about, somebody might have a lot of followers, but are those followers actually active? Like you will see a lot of people that have maybe 50, 60K and their videos are not really doing that many views.
Yeah, true.
So maybe those followers follow him because, again, maybe he's just part of a band, or maybe he bought those followers, or maybe those are fakes, or maybe they're old followers from something else. Like it could be a million different things. I check how much comments somebody got, how many reshares somebody got, how many views overall somebody got in their videos. That is a very good metric. The likes, actually, they don't matter. Somebody can easily buy likes.
Yeah.
But comments, people can also buy comments, but you can spot a mile away if they're fake or not.
True.
If they're true, they will have more personality. And of course, the reshares as well matter. So those, I would say the comments and the reshares matter, and the views matter definitely more than the likes.
You endorse Ibanez guitars, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And as of now, like officially, I endorse Ibanez guitars, EVH gear. I'm not endorsing any strings at the moment, although I would really like to endorse the Dario because I've been repping them for years.
Yeah.
I endorse download picks, Bernacle pickups, and I do really enjoy the products that those companies put out. I genuinely endorse them because I love their products. There's one thing that I need you to understand is that if you're a content creator, one that is basing his content off gear, maybe an endorsement is not exactly the best move that you could do, because an endorsement is most of the time exclusive. I have an
Yeah.
exclusive contract with Ibanez. I cannot put out guitars, I cannot display guitars or other stuff that is not Ibanez, because it is in my contract that I'm exclusive with a brand. Let's say that I'm a content creator that is reviewing guitars, that wants to put out content with as many guitars as possible. It would be against my interest to just be related to one brand. And that's why you will see many YouTubers or reviewers that they are not endorsed by any specific company. So it depends on the person. If you're somebody that is touring and you're devoted and you're happy with a certain brand, then by all means be exclusive with them. If you're someone that doesn't want the exclusivity, but you still want certain deals here and there, you can have a contract that is not exclusive. There are many contracts out there. They're just like maybe related to a limited time in which you're promoting a product from a certain brand. Doesn't mean that you're exclusive with that brand. But of course, the more exclusive you are, the more benefits you're going to get from the brand.
What's future looking like for you, Francesco?
Future.
Yeah. I mean,
2025 is going to be very, very busy for me.
Mhm.
So I have, Contenders 2 is going to come out. There's an amp sim that I'm working on with another company as well. And that's going to be something that is going to blow minds. It's going to be something that people will definitely be into, I think. I also have a pack that I'm developing with JTC Guitar. Hopefully sometime next year
Let's go.
is going to come out. Yes, I'm very looking forward to that. I've been making them wait a bit too long on that, but I hope sometime next year is going to come out. It's just that with so many things that I'm working at the same time, it's pretty difficult for me. Also, next year, the Bleed From Within album is going to come out, which I did the guitar tones for. So I'm very happy about it. So in
Nice.
April, it's going to come out. And what else?
It's like you're an octopus, man. You've got like, you're juggling.
Yeah, but at the same time, for my head is really way too much, because I have a lot of things, but at the same time, I can fully focus just on one of them. I need to fully dedicate my mind on that. Otherwise, it's not going to be that good. And after that, I need to do one more thing. So it's only going to be one thing until I finish it. And that's why maybe certain things I procrastinate a lot. So for example, in all of those things, I haven't mentioned my music. And I would love to put out new music next year or in the coming years. But before doing that, I need to put out those products. I am responsible with companies and I cannot slack with them, because if it was for me, I would just do music all the time. But we live in a world where people need to eat to survive and to earn money. So I need to prioritize this stuff because, of course, I have commitments with companies. Once this will be in place, then finally I will have time to dedicate to my own music, which I definitely look forward to, because I did, of course, release stuff related to companies like videos or stuff like that. But as far as music and songs, I haven't released actual songs since 2020, which was my album with Within Destruction. I did release some stuff as a solo artist, but it was always like shorter stuff. So yeah, I do look forward on all of those things.
Awesome.
It does keep me busy,
So exciting.
but also makes me happy. So good.
It's everything. It sounds brilliant. We wish you luck and a lot of power to you and every other project that comes by your way. I just have like one last question. Do you like ketchup on pizza?
No, absolutely not. It would be this, as an Italian, is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I would much prefer pineapple on pizza than ketchup on pizza. Ketchup on pizza, like what the no, absolutely not. Like, no.
I can not even count on my two hands like the things that I've learned by just having a conversation with you today.
Yeah,
and I just want to say that it's 30th of December by the time we're recording this. A lot of people are on vacations, but I know you are so much dedicated to all things music that you took this time, and I'm just very grateful. So I'd just like to say grazie mille, Francesco, for doing that for us. And
thank you so much.
If you have anything to say to anyone who's watching this, what would you tell them as a final parting note?
Do what fulfills you in life and makes you happy. Of course, you have to take into consideration money and being able to survive and put food on your plate. But at the end of the day, you only have one life, so you have to do the most out of it that makes you happy. Because there's nothing worse than doing something that is not making you feel like you belong in this world. So prioritize yourself, whether if it's kitchen or guitar or anything else. All right? That's it.